The world doesn't end with fire. It ends when containment fails, when pressure stops holding. Every civilization draws a line, a limit where chaos stops, and life is allowed to stay coherent. Two names show up in completely different traditions, not as trophies, not as monsters to slay, as structures. One is the deep, locked by pressure. The other is a serpent that circles the world. Leviathan, Jormungandr. And once you see what they really are, you stop asking who would win and start asking what happens if either one moves. Most people treat myth like a bestiary, a list of animals, with cool designs. But the older function of myth was different. It was a map of dangerous ideas. In Norse cosmology, Midgard is literally a protected middle, a world with edges. In ancient Near Eastern imagery, the sea isn't vacation, it's the place where order gets swallowed. So when cultures describe enormous serpents in the ocean, they're not just describing biology, they're describing containment. Here's the uncomfortable frame. Leviathan and Jormungandr aren't villains. They're limits, the kind you only notice when your world starts slipping. Leviathan shows up most famously in Job 41, not as a random fish, but as a thing weapons can't handle. Spears don't stick, harpoons don't hold. Its scales read like armor, and the text leans into a terrifying idea. Humans can look at it and still be powerless. That matters, because Leviathan isn't described like a hunter chasing ships. It's described like something you shouldn't even try to engage. A warning, written in anatomy. Here's the key interpretation. Leviathan represents the deep, as a sealed domain where pressure becomes a lock and access becomes a myth. So why describe it in such detail? Because myths don't only tell you what exists, they tell you what you're not allowed to attempt. Jormungandr isn't deep, he's circumference. In Norse myth, he's the world serpent who circles Midgard and bites his own tail. That image is not decoration, it's a concept, a sealed perimeter. And there's a scene that makes this obvious. Thor goes fishing with the giant Hymir. They use an ox head as bait. Thor hooks something so heavy, the sea itself reacts, and when Jormungandr rises, it's not a fish. It's the edge of reality, answering a pull. Thor wants to kill it, but the story repeatedly implies a limit. Even gods can't treat the boundary like a normal enemy, because killing a boundary isn't victory, it's opening. People merge Leviathan and Jormungandr because both are sea serpents. That's the mistake. Leviathan is vertical, depth. Jormungandr is horizontal, the rim. One is the locked basement, the other is the perimeter fence. And if a story preserves both separately, across cultures, it's not confusion, it's precision. Because if depth and edge fail at the same time, you don't get a flood, you get a world that can't hold shape. Now watch how myths describe the end, not as conquest, as collapse. When the boundary fails in Norse myth, the signs aren't a monster marching first. The first signs are conditions, winter. That doesn't release. Social order, cracking. The sky and sea, behaving wrong. That's why Ragnarok reads like a systems failure report. Fimbulwinter, 3 long winters. The sun and moon, pursued. The sea rising, beyond its normal shore. The world line, breaking. This is not a war story, it's an infrastructure story. The moment the world stops obeying, the agreements it used to obey. And myths were the earliest way humans tried to document that kind of failure. So here's the claim. Leviathan Rising isn't a boss fight. It's the deep becoming reachable. Jormungandr uncoiling isn't a battle. It's the perimeter opening. That's decompression. That's the map tearing. Now consider this. What if the first symptom of apocalypse isn't monsters, but measurement, disagreement? We prefer teeth, claws, and targets because targets can be defeated, and defeated things make us feel safe. But boundary myths aren't built to make you feel safe. They're built to make you careful. That's why these stories echo in modern disappearances. When navigation fails, when coordinates don't agree, when signals contradict each other, when crews argue over where they are, that doesn't feel like a monster. It feels like normal failure. And that's exactly why myths survive. They dramatize the part humans ignore. They turn respect the limit into a living presence. So the horror isn't being attacked. It's realizing the line was always held, and you never noticed it. So if you still want a versus answer, Leviathan versus Jormungandr is not about who wins, it's about which limit fails first. Leviathan is the rule. Don't open the deep. Jormungandr is the rule. Don't break the perimeter. One enforces pressure. The other enforces containment. Together, they form a box, and humans live inside it, mistaking the walls for nature. Next time, we go to the part that makes this modern. Not the serpents, the signals, the moments where maps stop agreeing, and reality feels like it's slipping. Because if the sea can erase proof, and the boundary can move, then the question isn't, do monsters exist? The real question is, what happens when the systems we never noticed stop working?